The Koh-i-Noor, a name whispered with awe, a legend etched in gemstone. But what if I told you this magnificent diamond, now a centerpiece of the British crown jewels, wasn't gifted, wasn't purchased, but was in essence stolen? Today, we unravel the truth behind Britain's acquisition of India's most coveted treasure, a story of conquest, coercion, and a deep, lasting scar on the soul of a nation. Imagine a jewel so brilliant, so legendary, that its very existence has shaped empires and ignited wars. This is the Koh-i-Noor, meaning Mountain of Light. For centuries, it resided in the heart of India, a symbol of power, prosperity, and divine right. Its lineage stretches back through Mughal emperors, Persian conquerors, and Sikh kings. It was a jewel that belonged unequivocally to the land of its birth. But then the British arrived, not as humble traders but as ambitious colonizers, and their eyes, like so many before them, fell upon the Koh-i-Noor. The year is 1849. The British East India Company, a private corporation that had slowly, insidiously gained control over vast swathes of India, had just defeated the Sikh Empire in the Second Anglo-Sikh War. This wasn't a war of equals. It was a brutal, protracted struggle where British military might, fueled by Industrial Revolution advancements, overwhelmed the formidable Sikh forces. Following this decisive defeat, the Treaty of Lahore was signed on March 29, 1849. This treaty, drafted by the victors, was a dictatorial imposition, and within its clauses, under the guise of peace and settlement, lay the fateful demand for the Koh-i-Noor. The treaty explicitly stated, "The jewel of the King of Afghanistan, the Koh-i-Noor, which was taken from Shah Shuja-ul-Mulk by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, shall be surrendered by the said Maharaja to the British Crown." Let's pause and consider the sheer audacity of this. The British, having just vanquished the Sikh Empire, were now claiming a jewel that had been in Sikh possession for decades, a jewel they themselves acknowledged was originally taken from an Afghan king by Ranjit Singh. This wasn't a claim based on inherent ownership, but a forceful assertion of power. It was the victor taking what the vanquished possessed, with no regard for prior claims or the emotional and cultural significance of the object. The treaty, however, was signed by representatives of the young Maharaja Duleep Singh, who was barely 11 years old at the time. He was a child king, effectively a puppet in the hands of his regents, who were themselves under immense pressure and manipulation by the British. The spirit of the treaty, if there was any semblance of it, was dictated by the gun. Duleep Singh, the last Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, would later express his deep sorrow and anger over the loss of his family's ancestral jewel. The actual surrender of the Koh-i-Noor is often depicted as a formal, even respectful handover, but the reality was far more complex and, frankly, more humiliating. The diamond, along with other treasures, was presented to the young Queen Victoria in London in 1850. This wasn't a voluntary offering. It was the fulfillment of a treaty that was signed under duress, in the aftermath of military defeat. The East India Company, acting on behalf of the British Crown, had effectively confiscated it. Think about the narrative the British constructed. They presented it as a gift, a symbol of peace and reconciliation. This, my friends, is historical revisionism at its most insidious. There was no gift. There was a demand backed by the unshakable force of British military dominance. The treaty was not a negotiation, it was a diktat. And the impact on India, it was profound. The Koh-i-Noor wasn't just a diamond, it was a potent symbol of Indian sovereignty, a repository of history, and a source of immense pride for its people. Its removal represented the stripping away of a tangible piece of India's identity, a constant reminder of subjugation. Consider the historical context. This was the peak of British imperialism. The phrase, "the sun never sets on the British Empire," wasn't just rhetoric, it was a lived reality for millions. And the Koh-i-Noor, sitting in London, became another glittering testament to that global dominion, a jewel that shone brightest with the light of conquest. The East India Company, with its insatiable appetite for wealth and power, played a crucial role. This wasn't a distant monarchy acting alone. It was a corporate entity that had amassed its own army, waged its own wars, and ultimately dictated terms to sovereign rulers. They were the architects of much of India's exploitation, and the Koh-i-Noor was one of their most prized acquisitions. Let's look at the documented evidence. The Treaty of Lahore, signed in 1849, is a public document. Its clauses are clear. The correspondence between British officials at the time, though often couched in diplomatic language, reveals the underlying intent. They were aware of the jewel's significance and its deep connection to the Sikh rulers. Yet, they proceeded with its acquisition, prioritizing imperial ambition over ethical considerations. The subsequent recutting of the Koh-i-Noor in 1852, under Prince Albert's supervision, further stripped away its historical character and reduced its original luster. This was not an act of preservation. It was an attempt to make it more palatable for a European audience, to erase its Indian origins and make it shine with a more modern brilliance. It was, in essence, a further act of appropriation, reshaping the object to fit the colonizer's aesthetic. The argument that the jewel was gifted is a convenient narrative that has been perpetuated for generations, obscuring the uncomfortable truth. It's a narrative that allows Britain to maintain possession without acknowledging the fundamental injustice of its acquisition. India has repeatedly requested the return of the Koh-i-Noor. These requests have been met with polite refusals, with justifications that often cite the diamond's rightful place in the British crown jewels, the complexity of its history, and the fact that it has been in British possession for so long. But history, my friends, does not legitimize injustice. The passage of time does not erase the stain of coercion. The Koh-i-Noor remains a potent symbol of this historical grievance. For many Indians, its presence in the Tower of London is a daily reminder of a painful past, a tangible representation of cultural and economic plunder. It's a story that goes beyond a single diamond. It speaks to a broader pattern of colonial extraction that has shaped the modern world. We must move beyond the romanticized tales of empire and confront the harsh realities. The Koh-i-Noor is not just a gemstone. It's a testament to a moment when power trumped principle, when force dictated ownership, and when a nation's most precious treasure was taken, not given. And as we gaze at images of this magnificent diamond, let us remember not just its sparkle, but the story behind its shine. A story that continues to resonate, a story that demands to be told, a story that asks us to question who truly owns the light.